Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from third group. We'll explain about understanding implied media. But I will introduce ourselves. My name is Dwi Agustyas and my partner Sistiyani and Noviya Lakshita Dewi. Okay, next will be explained by Noviya Lakshita Dewi.
Making inference and drawing conclusion. Inference are reasonable conclusion based on information in the text. Making an inference is like reading between the lines. You make a reasonable guess about information based on what you have read. Inferences are not directly stated, unlike explicit main ideas, but inferences are reasonable conclusions that are unstated, like an implied main idea. Reasonable means that the evidence for the inference is clearly suggested by the text and that the reader can infer further information based on what it studied in the text. You make inferences all the time in daily life. You draw conclusions about people's body language, facial expression, and tone of voice even when those people do not tell you directly how they feel. You can just tell. This is making an inference. Making several inferences add up to drawing overall conclusion. You also make inferences when you understand a joke or see what's funny in a cartoon. The speaker of the joke does not tell you directly why the joke is funny, but you put together the information and infer what's funny. Okay, so inference is the text and plus your background knowledge, and it would be inference. It means when you want to do your inference, you need the more knowledge to understand it. So let's talk about conclusion. Conclusion is an overall judgment about a reading based on several reasonable inferences. When you determine an overall implied main idea of a whole reading, you are drawing a conclusion based on both stated and unstated main ideas in each the reading body paragraph. But in doing this, you have inferred the implied main idea of a reading. This is called an implied main idea because the author strongly implies or suggests the overall point. The overall point is not a wild guess, but a guess predicated on a series of pieces of information: the topic, how it is organized, the author's purpose, and the major supporting details. So here are a few ways readers to make inferences. The first is using context clues. Using word structure clues like structure analysis, making prediction about what will happen next in reading, making prediction about how the information in a reading will be structured, determining implied main ideas, determining the mood or tone of a reading from the author's choice of word, understanding how a character feels, understanding even in a reading and why they happened, comprehending the author's side on an issue, and relating to a reading by using background knowledge. Okay, so the next is implied main idea. An implied main idea is a formulated main idea statement created by the reader when an author does not directly state his or her main point in one sentence within a reading. So to determine an implied media is to draw a logical conclusion. To find implied main ideas, a reader needs to use all the skills outlined in the previous chapters. And so implied main ideas can be made with one of three methods. Okay, the first is topic plus existing sentence. And the second is sentence plus sentence. And the third is general statement based on supporting details. So the first topic and existing sentence, it gonna be implied main idea. There may be a sentence in the passage that contains the author's most important point about the topic, but refers to the topic itself by a pronoun he, she, it, they, this, and etc. In order to express a complete thought, the reader needs to add the topic to the sentence that contains the point. So the next is sentence plus sentence are gonna be employment idea. The second type of employment idea exists when the author's most important point is divided into two sentences. These sentences must be combined in order to accurately state the main idea in a single sentence. So the third method is general statement based on supporting details. The third type of employment idea occurs when the authors present a series of supporting details only. The reader can fairly easily understand what the overall point is, but has nothing stated in the passage to work with us in method the method 1 and 2 above. Okay, so the next step to finding the employment idea. The steps of figuring out the employment idea are very similar to those for finding an explicitly stated main idea with one additional step. The first is what is the topic? The second, what is the author's purpose? And the third, what is the overall structure of pattern organization? What is the author's most important point about the topic? Find the answer to question 4 within the reading, and that is the explicit main idea. And write your own statement of main idea when the author does not so directly. So quick tips: writing employment idea statements. When you write your own employment idea statement, follow these guidelines. Method 1. Add the topic to a sentence in the passage that comes close to starting the point you have constructed in your mind. Method 2. Combine two sentences to create your statement of the main point. And method 3. Check to see if the reading is a series of supporting points that all logically fall under the general statement you have constructed as the main idea, taking into account that all major supporting points are equal in importance. So I have 3 methods to finding employment ideas in paragraph. The first method is add a topic to an existing sentence. The second method is combine two sentences to express a complete thought. And the third method is construct a general statement based on supporting details. Okay, so the next is formulating implied main ideas. Just because the paragraphs are long does not mean that they are difficult to work with. Just remember to take it step by step. Okay, consider the topic, determine the pattern, and then figure out the main point using your words. So you just need to understand it all and write your own words. Okay, let's talk about study strategy, reading and understanding literature. Some readings that are instructive, informative, persuasive, or entertaining do not have explicit main idea. Likewise, in literary readings, the author does have a point for the reader to consider, but the point is not directly stated. As such, the point or message of a story, poem, play, novel, or literary passage is unstated or implied. So the main idea of a literary piece is referred to as its theme. The theme of a piece of literature is somewhat similar to the main idea of piece of non-fiction writing. It answers the question, what is the author's most important point? What message is he or she communicating? The theme of piece of literature, a novel, a poem, a play, or other imaginative work, is rarely stated explicitly. In your college literature classes, you will often need to figure out an author's most important point or theme, and because the theme will most likely only be implied, you will need to make inferences and draw reasonable conclusions. This reasonable conclusion needs to be based on evidence contained in the reading. Determining the theme of literary selection and determining employment ideas in a reading from another academic discipline requires the same skill of inference. Okay, so these steps to finding the main idea of a literary selection. To figure out the main idea or theme of literary work, consider these steps. First is determine the message, moral, abstract principle, or statement about life the author is communicating. This is the theme or implied main idea of the reading. And the second, write your perception of the author's theme in statement format. The third, determining whether your theme statement makes sense in and of itself. The fourth, reread the selection several times to determine whether the information in the literary work functions to support your theme statement. Okay, so this is the question to consider when reading literature. The first is about what does the title reveal about the literary work. The author chooses the title for a specific reason, and it can help you to understand the theme of the work and the message the author is communicating. And the second is who are the characters. And the third is what is the setting. It's like refers to time and place in which the event recounted occurred. Setting is important not only to the plot of a piece of literature but also its mood or tone. And next is what is the point of view. The authors tell the story for a particular point of view. Consider the following possibilities. Is the story told from a first-person perspective? Is the story told from a second-person perspective? And etc. The next is, what is the author's of narrator's attitude or tone towards the subject? Tone is the author's attitude towards his or her subject as revealed by his or her choice of word and writing style. The mood or underlying emotion of a story, play, or poem is also communicated by author's choice words and writing style and is linked with tone, whereas tone suggests the author's attitude towards the subject matters, usually the information and persuasive text. Mood suggests the underlying emotion or of a poem, story, or literary piece. Okay, the next is about what is the main conflict. So, conflict is the tension that is created by or between two opposing forces. And the first time, human versus human, the protagonist is in the opposition to an antagonist who is another character in the piece. And the second type is conflict. Human versus an external force or entity. The protagonist is pitted against something external to himself or herself, such as the environment or a social tradition. And the third type of conflict, human versus self, is eternal to the protagonist. He or she may struggle with his/her conscience and the impulses or desires. The next is what is plot or sequence of event. The next is what is the high point, or as we know known as climax, and what is the resolution, what figurative language, poetic device, and symbols has the author used. So in this point, we're gonna talk about the assonance and also alliteration. So, about assonance is the repetition of vowel sound for effect. In a poem like "The fat cat sat on the rat," and alliteration is about repetition of initial consonant sound, like the chuckling cherub charted with childish. And the last is about what is the author's message or moral that is being communicated. Based on your answer to all these questions, when reading to understand literature, you need to determine what the author's theme or message is. It means you should understand what the author's done.
For the next, I will explain about vocabulary strategy, understanding figurative language. Figurative functions to provide a vivid mental image in the mind of the reader. It is not meant to be interpreted literally and involves using a comparison between two things, different enough that when compared the suggested similarities are interesting or thought-provoking. In using this language, authors show that rather than tell how they feel or how a character feels. And the next is literal language. Does not use literary device. It is language that is very straightforward and clear, or the dictionary definition. Figurative language, on the other hand, involves mental image or literary device to make a point. Figurative language is the opposite of literal language. And the next is literature is specific type of writing that relies heavily on word choice as well as the use of figurative language. Figurative language also refers to the tone or mood of the reading or situation, which is the underlying emotion similar to an implied main idea. Writers in other disciplines sometimes use figurative language when they want to explain or draw attention to a particular point in a memorable or more effective way. Here are most common types of figurative language. The first is metaphor is a form of figurative language that compares two objects or ideas in order to emphasize a particular quality they have in common despite their essential differences. For the example is that is a tiger when it comes to business. For the example, we can know the man is compared to a tiger. In Western culture, a tiger symbols power and aggression. So in this metaphor, the man is being described aggressive, powerful, and in charge. And the second is simile, compares to the similar entities. However, unlike a metaphor, a simile uses the words like, as, or than to express the point of similarity in the two things compared. For the example is, she was aggressive as a tiger when it came to business. Whether an author uses metaphor or simile depends on her or his desired effect, which might be very subtle. Both are indirect comparisons between two seemingly unlike things. Both functions create a strong mental image in the mind of the reader. And the third is personification, gives living characteristics to inanimate objects. For the example, as I stood on the bridge, I watched the river dancing beneath my feet. In this sentence, the river is given a characteristic held only by living creatures, the ability to dance. Rhythmic pattern movement is implied through the use of personification in this example. The fourth is hyperbole is exaggeration for literary effect. The example, I was so famous I could eat the food of a dozen lumberjacks. The most reader would not believe that any one individual could eat as much food 12 presumably large strongmen. The exaggeration functioned to show how hungry the person was. Similarly, in the second example, the hyperbole functions to emphasize the length of the way.
Okay, in here I will explain to understand graphic. Finding implied main ideas in visual aids and cartoons. Understanding the main idea of cartoons usually requires figuring out what the implied main idea is. You need to have some background knowledge that suggests why there's a differences between what you expect and what you get in order to get the joke or see what's funny in a cartoon. To get the joke, you make an inference. Remember, an inference is a reasonable guess based on information that provided together with your own background knowledge. It's unstated, like an implied idea. Okay, there are an example. Look at the picture. There's a sentence in picture. Hey, I'm whatever man. I possess vast powers of indifference. What is the implied main idea of this cartoon? And what is the topic? So, the topic is apathy, or not taking action. The superhero, whatever man, takes no action even though the frantic citizen is urgently alerting him to a robot trying to destroy the city. The joke is that the superhero is doing nothing, lounging on a park bench, rather than trying to help solve the problem, which goes against a superhero's role. The implied main idea is that by doing nothing, he contributes to rather than solve the problem. Though popular imagination turns to superheroes to right the world wrongs, this superheroes is apathetic in the face of imminent destruction. Okay, so that's all from us. Thank you very much for watching, and bye bye.